and I would like to know if you could recommend the most.
Hey everyone, just want to check. So I just did the update. Back now to talk about Lucifer's Banker. As you know, I've been talking about, posting some stuff about this book, incredible book by Bradley Birkenfield over the last few weeks. It's one of the most incredible stories that I've ever read. And I just found out that Bradley actually released an uncensored version, which is an update 2 years ago in September 2020. So I'm going to try to pick a copy up to review it this weekend. Um, Lucifer's Banker is the story of Swiss banking, and a lot of you have heard about some of the Swiss banking stuff. There's a number of there's a number of great stories about it. People know that there's a number of issues with it as far as the anonymous accounts, the numbered accounts, and a lot of secrecy going back to with Switzerland and the possessions of the Jewish people back in World War II, that the Nazis had siphoned off a lot of their wealth and their gold and their materials valuables to Switzerland. But to go into another subject with this, it's Switzerland has became one of the there's about a dozen countries that are considered to be offshore havens, like Panama, Seychelles. There's a few other ones, Maldives. But Switzerland is obviously the most well known and obviously the most Western country. I think Liechtenstein also has some degree of and obviously it's in the same part of the world. But in Switzerland, a lot of the banks provide numbered and different accounts that basically hide wealth. So a lot of people have used that to evade taxes. Some people are in the narcotics, terrorism. Switzerland never used to participate, in with the U.S. government when they were looking for criminals. They still don't, unless it happens to be terrorism, because obviously after 9/11 things changed in that realm. So in Switzerland, they have a number of banks, but obviously the primary ones are UBS, which stands for Union Bank of Switzerland, and also Barclays, which is out of Britain. Barclays is obviously a British bank. It was involved in 2008 when Barclays was trying to buy at the time Lehman Brothers, and the deal fell through because the British regulators wouldn't let them buy Lehman Brothers because it was so toxic at the time. But anyway, there's a gentleman by the name of Bradley Birkenfield, and I've just become incredibly impressed with this guy. And I'd like to eventually, when a little bit more, maybe in the distant future, uh, or not too distant future, as the case may be, try to get him on for an interview and do some more in depth with him. I think his book, obviously, I'm a Toto fan, by the way. I think his book should be optioned into like an 8 to 10 part limited TV series, like We Crashed and Dope Sick, and also The Dropout about Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos. But I think whereas they're kind of the anti-hero um, and villains, I think Bradley Birkenfield is a hero, somebody that everybody should look up to and respect. So the book opens with obviously his story about how he worked for in the banking system industry. He initially went to work for State Street, which is a Boston-based investment bank. They were also one of the banks that received funding with the TARP funding back in 2008, 2009. They were one of the 10 investment banks that were in the meeting with the Treasury Department and the New York Federal Reserve. But he went to work for State Street and then had an offer to go to Barclays, and he went to Barclays where he would meet his assistant, the lady who would eventually be his assistant at both Barclays and UBS. At Barclays, he developed quite a um, reputation for attracting high net worth clients, people with you talk about starting at 10 million, 20 million, 100 million, 200 million. He would attract those people. He would go to major events where those people would be at, museum openings, sporting events, things like that. Obviously very high dollar, high net worth individuals that you might see in Cannes or Aspen or Monaco, things like that. It makes the average if you're worth $10 million, you're probably not even playing in that field sometimes. So he would attract some high net worth investors who would place money with his bank. And while at Barclays, he ended up getting an offer to come to UBS, and he negotiated a pretty good deal. He actually became the highest paid um, of private banker in at UBS. He negotiated a deal that not only would pay him about 300,000 salaries plus his travel and expense account and his, obviously his benefits and things, which are quite substantial in Europe, and especially as an American. But he negotiated 18% cut of the profits from what his clients would place with the banks. So if a client comes into the bank and puts their money into the Swiss banks, they can authorize the banks to invest it, which obviously is the only way they actually get interest. But a lot of people don't know you don't actually get interest in Swiss bank accounts unless you direct that bank to invest your money or to use it for loans and stuff. Otherwise, it does not collect interest. In fact, a lot of people don't know you actually pay fees to put your money in. So if you're $10 million, you put the money in into or 100 million or whatever, but you pay about 3%. Well, you're not paying taxes on it. So that 3% that you're paying to Barclays or UBS or any of the major banks is basically a lot better than the 40, maybe even 50% you're paying the U.S. government and then whatever state you're in. So obviously 3% is a lot lower account. So somebody puts in 100 million, they're paying the bank like 3 million a year. So if they would loan out or invest the money, Bradley would get 18% of the profits. So one customer who's from Russia, who actually had some interest in Miami, he put in $200 million, and later on, Bradley's got a picture in his book of a check written on a U.S. bank account, just a normal checking account, to the IRS for $52 million. I think it's actually the Department of Justice as a fine for his business dealings. So here's written on a personal check for $52 million. It's pretty incredible. So reading the story about this, you can read him. I think it's about chapter 304, where he shows up and he starts talking about, how Bradley had a flat or apartment in Geneva, and he had a Ferrari, a 2000 Ferrari. I think it's called Modino. It was red, and it would be for his clients to drive around while they were in Switzerland, which is obviously very attractive. So he would fly around the world, go to events like, I would estimate that he'd go to like, Barrett Jackson. Not sure if he did, but those kind of events, things like that, major events like Formula One racing. People where you're going to meet billionaires and people with hundreds of millions of dollars, which you don't, polo clubs, country clubs, things like that. So he would attract a lot of clients, and they would put their money into UBS, and they would have a numbered account. At some point, he would know his clients. They would come in, and there was unique ways of how the bank would identify the client when they'd come and go to the bank. It was very secret. They'd often stay at his flat. They would, there's a lot of ways. It's almost like a CIA operation on how these people would access the banks, and Bradley would be the middleman. And so he would introduce them to, his bosses and stuff. And he had quite a reputation and quite a client list. And so one of his new bosses came in a few years into the job and started, maybe it was jealousy or something, but maybe it's his boss. I'm the boss, you shouldn't be making this kind of money. Kind of backstabbed him on a bonus that he was supposed to receive. So Bradley went to war with this guy for quite a while within the bank. He tried to actually address it within the bank to no avail. So finally, he decided to resign, and he had all his files and all his information, and he went to approached a couple of law firms in Washington D.C. because they have the, Washington D.C. politically connected lobbyist type law firms have connections. They have a lot of people that have worked in the DOJ or they've worked in the administrations, things like that. They're they've been cabinet officers, stuff like that. He approached one law firm and they referred him to another one, and he actually reported UBS and to the Department of Justice and to officials. And then he thought everything was gonna they were just gonna basically do an investigation. Well, it turned out that this overzealous Department of Justice prosecutor, U.S. attorney, and an investigator basically decided to go after him instead. So it was like a witch hunt. So in the end, he thought he was going to just basically be a whistleblower, get whistleblower protection and all that stuff. And then he ended up battling with them for quite some time before he finally had to accept a plea bargain. They actually charged him with crimes, and Bradley went to prison for 30 months 2.5 years in a prison that he actually has a whole chapter to, joking, called Camp Cupcake. This prison was like a camp, so it didn't have a fence. They were basically on the same property as a federal prisons have. Obviously they have ADX. So in Colorado, where terrorists and stuff, they're underground. They have They also have maximum security, medium security, and what they call low security. Low security means it's like dormitories. People have jobs in the prison, whatever. Then they have the camps, and sometimes the camps work. They can sometimes even work in the communities where the prison's at. So he was in a camp to call Camp Cupcake, which was quite entertaining on that chapter, reading about it. But when he got released from prison finally, here's the odd thing: the Department of Justice went after him hard and put him in federal prison. The IRS, the Treasury Department, loved the guy. They fined, there was like a $5 billion fine that was assessed, and tens of billions of dollars in repatriated money that was basically brought back to the United States. He exposed a lot of people hiding for tax evasion purposes and other nefarious activities. The IRS cut him a check as a whistleblower for $104 million. There's a picture of the check in his book, and it's actually about $75 million after taxes, because of course the IRS took the taxes out. So he paid $40 million in taxes on that. And he actually relocated. He lives in Malta. He is still a U.S. citizen. He votes in the United States, and he still pays taxes, but he lives over in Malta. I actually like this guy so much. I really wish we could start a petition or a drive to get him a federal, presidential pardon, so he can get, he brought billions and billions of dollars back to the United States of tax money. I think it really sucks that the U.S. government stuck him with, federal crime and felonies. I think he should get a full pardon, and I'm going to actually lead that effort. I really believe Bradley Birkenfield's probably what everybody should aspire to be. And he took one for the team, 30 months in federal prison, even if it was Camp Cupcake. But he got this check for $75 million after taxes. I think we need to recognize that the guy's a hero and not a villain. So with that, I encourage everybody to do some research. You can Google him. His website's www.lucifersbanker.com. There's a lot of updates on there. He has his Facebook and his Twitter. He has a whole history of interviews. He also has a lot of stuff of current cases that are related. I was looking at it today. There's some stuff recently, is just a couple months ago in 2022, 3 or 4 stories, some of it involving Swiss banking and other banking institutions and things like that. So, a lot of stuff with offshore, all kinds of good information and interviews. And of course, his book was updated. There's actually a story that he has. I think it's a Lauder, one of the makeup company executives, like the CEO and patriarch of the Lauder. I think it's Estee Lauder. And then also Kevin Costner. He actually is in a lawsuit, or was, with Kevin Costner, because he basically was outing Kevin Costner having a hidden bank account and not paying taxes on it. So Kevin Costner is actually the defendant. Bradley is actually the plaintiff in the case. So I'll try to get an update from that and see what's going on with that case. But he said there's about 4,700 American citizens that still haven't been identified through all the records and stuff. So that's a lot of people hiding wealth, not paying taxes, things like that. Hey, I don't like paying taxes either, but then I try to find loopholes and ways to pay less taxes. Like I go to the state of Wyoming, I don't have to pay state income tax or corporate tax, but do it legally and you'll be okay, or invest it. There's 1031 exchanges for real estate. There's a lot of ways, guys, to do tax, to basically cut your taxes, reduce them, and pay less. But I think Bradley Birkenfield is a hero, and I encourage everybody to look at his website, lucifersbanker.com, and pick up a copy of his book at the public library. Like I've said in every one of my videos, the public library is one of the great institutions of our country. So I'm going to be returning $3 tomorrow and have 3 books to pick up that I'll be reviewing next week. I also will be doing The Big Short this weekend, based on the movie. I was trying to get Too Big to Fail as well, because they're kind of companions. But just so you know, I look forward to doing that review and doing a couple more next week. There's going to be a huge improvement in obviously the quality of the video and possibly even the audio. And then of course in mid-June, when my Movo unit gets here, it's going to be incredible. So I thank you for your patience and your subscription. Please like, share, and subscribe so I can start bringing you more content. I want to bring you. I'm going to try to put at least one video up and maybe a couple extra videos a week. Also, Tuesday and Thursday nights will be Kevin and Sean. I think on Wednesday nights, I will probably start doing our roundtable with lenders, investors, and some other people. So I look forward to bringing you the content. Like I said, just like, share, and subscribe. And I thank you for viewing this today. I know sometimes I talk a little fast. What I don't want to do is do such a deep dive that you guys get all the information. I want you to go and read these books or look at these films. Some of them are on Hulu, some of them are, they're streamed, so you can get a lot of information like We Crashed, The Dropout, Dope Sick. You can go get all those stories, and I'm not giving everything away. I'm kind of just giving you a synopsis and kind of a rundown of some of the interesting things that I like, that I found interesting about it. There's obviously a lot more I can go into the detail. I will do a second episode based on Lucifer's Banker after I get a hold of Bradley's uncensored version of his book. There's a lot more recent information, updates, changes in laws, things that have happened since his book was originally published. And again, I thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe.